The clock on the nightstand glowed with malevolent red numbers, 2:17 a.m. Sleep was a distant country I couldn't find a visa for. Beside me, my wife, Sarah, stirred. I thought she was having a nightmare, but when she spoke, her voice was clear, laced with a strange, dreamy nostalgia that chilled me more than any scream could have. "He used to know exactly how to hold me," she whispered into the darkness. "Mark, I mean. He had this way of fitting, like we were two halves of the same whole." My blood turned to ice water. Mark, her college boyfriend, the ghost I thought we'd exorcised years ago. We'd been married for 5 years, together for 8. Mark was supposed to be a footnote, a faded photograph in a dusty album, but in the dead of night, Sarah was painting him in vibrant, living color. I stayed silent, my body rigid. Maybe she was talking in her sleep. I prayed she was. "He was so ambitious," she continued, her voice a soft, cutting murmur. "He would have been a partner at his firm by now. We would have had that house on the lake he always talked about." Every word was a carefully aimed dart, finding its mark in the soft tissue of my insecurities. I wasn't a high-powered lawyer. I was a high school history teacher. I loved my job, the spark in a kid's eye when they finally understood the fall of Rome. But we didn't have a house on the lake. We had a 3-bedroom suburban home that I had poured my heart and soul into renovating myself. "Why are you talking about him, Sarah?" I finally asked, my voice raspy. She rolled over to face me, her eyes gleaming in the sliver of moonlight piercing the blinds. There was no sleepiness in them. "I don't know, just thinking. Do you ever wonder what if?" "No," I said, the word clipped. "I chose my path. I chose you." She sighed, a sound of profound disappointment. "It's just, sometimes I feel like we're settling, you know? Life should be more exciting." That was the hook, the first thread she pulled that would unravel everything. The midnight confessions became a recurring torture. Some nights it was Mark's ambition. Other nights it was his spontaneity, his taste in wine, the way he could supposedly debate philosophy until dawn. I became a shadow, constantly measured against a phantom I couldn't compete with. My confidence, once a sturdy oak, began to rot from the inside out. I started second-guessing everything. Was I not ambitious enough? Was I boring? I suggested a weekend trip. She said it was a nice thought, but Mark would have whisked her away to Paris on a whim. I bought her a necklace for her anniversary. She smiled politely and mentioned the custom-designed bracelet Mark had given her for their 1 year. Her phone, once left carelessly on the coffee table, was now her constant companion, always screened down. She started working late, setting up big project at the firm. She was a graphic designer, and long hours weren't unheard of, but the frequency was new.
When she came home, she smelled of expensive perfume I didn't recognize, and a weariness that seemed deeper than just work. My sister, Chloe, noticed the change in me first. We met for our weekly coffee, and she took one look at my gaunt face and the dark circles under my eyes and set her cup down firmly. "All right, Alex, spill it. You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," I mumbled. "I'm competing with one." I told her everything, the nightly comparisons, the constant feeling of inadequacy, the growing distance between Sarah and me. Chloe listened, her expression hardening. She was a lawyer, pragmatic and sharp, and she didn't deal in phantoms. "This isn't about Mark," she said, her voice low and certain. "Mark is a distraction, a smokescreen. People who are happy don't systematically dismantle their partner's self-esteem. She's either trying to force you to end it, or she's hiding something else." Her words were a splash of cold water, a smokescreen. It sounded like something out of a spy novel, but as I thought about it, the pieces started to click into a terrifying new picture. The late nights, the secret phone, the emotional distance. My jealousy and hurt were so focused on a man from a decade ago that I had been blind to the present. That night, I did something I swore I'd never do. I waited until she was sound asleep, her breathing deep and even. With trembling hands, I picked up her phone. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of guilt and fear. It was locked, of course, but after 8 years, I knew her. I tried her birthday. Nothing. Her mother's birthday. Nothing. Then I remembered a date she'd once mentioned offhandedly, the day she first met Mark. My fingers typed it in. The phone unlocked. A wave of nausea washed over me. I opened her messages. I scrolled past conversations with her mother, her friends, me, and then I saw it, a name I didn't recognize. David. The thread was long, stretching back months. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Last night was incredible.
I'm only alive when I'm with you. There were photos. David, handsome and smiling, in a hotel room I didn't recognize. Sarah, beaming, wearing the lingerie I'd bought her for Valentine's Day. The big project at the firm, the late nights. It wasn't a project, it was a person. But the twist wasn't just that she was cheating. As I scrolled deeper, my blood ran cold. I found a conversation from 2 months ago, right when the late night talks about Mark had begun. David, is he getting suspicious? You seemed worried today. Sarah, don't worry about Alex. I've started talking about my ex again. He's so busy being jealous of a ghost from 10 years ago, he'd never think to look for a real person right under his nose. It's the perfect cover. The perfect cover. Chloe was right. The ghost of Mark wasn't her lingering regret. It was her weapon, a carefully crafted psychological tool to misdirect, to wound, to keep me off balance while she built a new life behind my back.
The cruelty of it, the cold, calculated deception, was staggering. It was a betrayal on a level I couldn't have fathomed. I closed the phone and placed it back on her nightstand. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, watching the shadows lengthen and then recede as dawn approached. I felt strangely calm, the frantic energy of suspicion replaced by a hollow, ringing clarity. The man who had gone to bed last night was gone, and I didn't know who this new, shattered person was. When Sarah came downstairs, she was humming. She was wearing her robe, her hair a mess, and she looked at me with a bright, false smile. "You're up early," she said, heading for the coffee maker. "We need to talk," I said. My voice was flat, devoid of the emotion that had been strangling me for weeks. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. "Okay, what's up? Is this about Mark again? Alex, you have to let it go. It was a long time ago." I looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw a complete stranger. A performer playing the part of my wife. "You're right," I said softly. "It's not about Mark." Relief washed over her face. "Good, because it's really not healthy for you to be so obsessed with my past." I let the silence hang in the air for a moment before delivering the line I had rehearsed in my head all night. My icy comeback, my final word. "You spent so much time making me jealous of a memory," I said, my voice level and cold, "that I almost missed the man you're making new ones with." "Who's David, Sarah?" Her face went white. The coffee cup in her hand trembled, rattling against the saucer. It was the most beautiful and terrible sound I had ever heard. Every ounce of her smug confidence, her practiced nonchalance, evaporated in an instant. She looked like a cornered animal. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, her eyes darting around the room, looking for an escape. "Don't you?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The difference between Mark and David is that Mark is just a story you tell. For David, I have the hotel receipts. I forwarded them to my email last night. Room 408 at the Westin. Was the view nice? She finally broke. A sob escaped her lips and she sank to the floor, the facade crumbling into a pathetic heap. She cried, she begged, she apologized. She said it meant nothing, that she loved me, that she was just lost. But the words were meaningless. The woman I loved had never really existed. She was an illusion, and the real Sarah was the one who had methodically torn me apart to cover her tracks. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there, feeling a profound, empty sadness. I had already mourned our marriage in the dark, lonely hours before dawn. "I've already called my sister," I said. My voice as empty as my heart. "Chloe will have a divorce lawyer contact Len Monday. Pack your things. I want you out by the end of the day." I walked out of the kitchen, out of the house, and just kept walking. The sun was up now, casting long shadows on the pavement. The world felt both alien and intensely real. For the first time in months, I wasn't living in the shadow of a ghost. The air was crisp and clean. It was the painful, terrifying, and ultimately liberating first breath of the rest of my life.